Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Two police officers, dressed in blue uniforms, pulled up to my garage in a patrol car. I watched them quietly from under the lift, wiping grease off my hands as I tried to read their faces. It felt strange to see police officers looking so cheerful. But as they walked toward me, their smiles faded. After checking my identity, they gave me disturbing news. Something had happened to my wife, Kate. She was in the hospital, but they couldn't give me any details. I immediately tried to leave, but they stopped me. They started asking where I had been for the past 3 hours. I told them I had been at the garage all day and suggested they talk to my mechanics, Mike and Pete. Apologetically, I admitted I had stepped out for about 10 minutes around 11 a.m. to grab coffee for the team. One officer questioned Mike and Pete while the other wrote down the name of the coffee shop I had visited. Then he asked to see my truck. Without hesitation, I led him outside. He inspected the vehicle carefully before finally letting me head to the hospital. When I arrived, my heart was pounding. A staff member explained Kate's injuries, the severe blood loss, the emergency surgery, the transfusions. My concern only grew when I noticed the doctor's strange, half-hearted smile as he delivered the grim news. It felt unprofessional, even inappropriate. As I was leaving, the same two officers stopped me again, asking more questions. We sat in the hospital cafeteria, each holding a cup of coffee. They started asking about my marriage. I told them Kate, and I had been married for 8 years. She had worked as a successful attorney, always wanting kids, but waiting until she was established in her career. A month ago, she had quit her job, planning to take a break before starting a family, a final stretch of freedom before motherhood. Then came a question that caught me off guard. What can you tell us about John Barton? I frowned. I don't know anyone by that name. They exchanged glances but didn't explain. They simply thanked me and walked away. Trusting my team to close the garage for the night, I drove home, only to find forensic scientists and a detective already there, searching through the house. The detective introduced himself and briefly told me what they knew. He repeated the same questions the officers had asked, but with one extra. There are a few drops of blood in the downstairs bathroom. Any idea how they got there? I shook my head. No idea. Then I fixed him with a steady gaze. Are you treating me like a suspect? He exhaled and gave a vague reassurance. We have multiple leads. My colleague is speaking with Mrs. Barton. That name hit me. John Barton. Who is John Barton? I asked again, but the detective apologized. I can't disclose that. After they left, confusion ate away at me. I went upstairs to the bedroom and looked around, seeing everything differently now. Earlier that morning, around 10 a.m., I had been working at the garage, but my thoughts had drifted, thoughts of closeness. They say men think about intimacy dozens of times an hour. After almost a month of near celibacy, I was definitely above that average. Kate's sudden disinterest had been obvious. Mood swings, boredom, exhaustion. I figured it was the stress of leaving her career behind and facing the idea of motherhood. I didn't push her. I knew it was a huge change. But that morning, I decided to surprise her, to reignite some of the passion we had lost. I told Mike and Pete I'd be out for a while. Pete asked if I could test drive a car he had just fixed. I agreed, took a quick spin, then headed home, excited. But all my excitement disappeared when I saw an unfamiliar car parked in our driveway. A visitor. Frustration flared inside me, but I told myself it could be nothing, maybe just a friend. I entered the house, calling out for Kate. No answer. Then I heard it, a sound no husband should ever hear. My whole body went cold. The hair on my arms stood on end. The unmistakable sounds of pleasure drifted down from our bedroom. Instinctively, my hand went to my phone. At the garage, I always recorded videos when clients brought their cars in, a precaution against false damage claims. That same habit kicked in now. Heart pounding. I climbed the stairs, pressed record, and nudged the bedroom door open just enough to see Kate, a man I didn't recognize. Our bed, a raw, primal rage surged through me, but I forced myself to turn away. I could have ended that man's life in an instant. Instead, I collapsed against the hallway wall, breathless and shattered. They were completely unaware of my presence, lost in their act. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed by betrayal. Eventually, the sounds of pleasure faded, replaced by hushed conversation. Hearing it was just as painful. I needed to think. I needed distance. Treading quietly, I slipped downstairs and sank into the sofa, away from the sights, the smells, the lingering echoes of treachery. Despite the agony, my mind stayed sharp. A plan took shape. First, get him out. Confront him. Throw him outside naked. Then deal with Kate. No violence. No evidence. Just swift, decisive humiliation. I had the perfect tool for the job. 2 years ago, while serving in the Army Reserve National Guard, I had come across a stun grenade, a non-lethal device used in hostage situations. A blinding flash of 8 million candle power and a deafening blast of 170 decibels, enough to incapacitate anyone nearby. I retrieved the device from my workshop, quickly modified it by adding a rope loop, and returned to the bedroom. This time, I didn't bother being quiet. Moans still drifted through the door. Hand tightening around Grenade, I stepped inside. I secured the rope loop to the ceiling light fixture, letting the device dangle halfway to the floor. I pulled the pin, pocketed it, and stepped back, pressing my fingers to my ears and squeezing my eyes shut. Even through closed lids, the blast was blinding. The shock wave rocked the house. As planned, I re-entered the room, ready to carry out my revenge. But what I saw froze me in place. The man lay sprawled on his back, motionless. Something was wrong below his waist. Something missing. Kate lay on the floor, eyes vacant, lips trembling as if gasping for air. Confusion flooded my mind. What had just happened? This wasn't the outcome I expected. Stumbling back into the hallway, I tried to make sense of it all. Whatever happened in that room, it was worse than anything I had imagined. Suddenly, 2 horrifying screams echoed from the bedroom, followed by loud bangs and doors slamming. Reality hit me hard. I was in serious trouble. My plan had failed. Peeking into the chaos, I saw the guy tumble out of bed, clutching his groin, howling in agony. Kate was nowhere in sight, likely in the bathroom. I needed to erase any evidence. I rushed back into the room, scanning for anything incriminating. Finding the detonator for the device, I quickly secured it to the rope. Everything else seemed destroyed. Taking a deep breath, I cautiously approached the bathroom. Kate was on her knees, vomiting into the toilet. I felt nothing, no sympathy, no concern. I just didn't care anymore, and on my way out, something on the floor caught my eye. Bending down, I picked up a warm, soft piece of flesh, a severed tip of a tongue. Without hesitation, I carried it to the downstairs toilet and flushed it away. There was no way they were reattaching that. Trying not to make a sound, I slipped out into the night. The distance between our house and the neighbors worked in my favor. Halfway to the garage, I emptied my pockets into a roadside trash can. 10 minutes later, I was back at my small work garage, breathing heavily, mind racing. I called Pete and Mike, my trusted, oil-stained employees and friends. They arrived quickly, alarmed by my tone. Before they could react, I asked them to vouch for me for the last 45 minutes. Their answer was immediate. Of course, boss. But I held up a hand. Wait. Before you agree, hear me out. I warned them that what I had done was serious. Once they knew the truth, they might not want to be involved. I wasn't even sure what charges I could face. Maybe jail time. Changing into my old overalls. Rubbing an oily rag over my hands and face, I prepared for the inevitable police arrival. Then I told them everything. Mike was the first to crack. He tried to hold it in for about 15 seconds before bursting into laughter. That set Pete off. Soon, all 3 of us were howling with laughter. It took a full 5 minutes to calm down. With firm handshakes and promises of support, they returned to work. Throughout the next hour, spontaneous laughter echoed through the dirty garage. Kate was finally facing the consequences she deserved. That evening, I returned home and cleaned the master bedroom, scrubbing the bathroom floor. The bedding had to go. I made a mental note to buy a new rug. The torn curtains needed replacing too. I kept myself busy to avoid thinking, but the constant phone calls and knocking at the door made it impossible to ignore the chaos. The media frenzy was relentless, a mix of infidelity and a man losing his manhood. It was the perfect scandal. I answered the door once, but after that, I shut off my phone completely. Finally, with no distractions, I sat down and let myself think. Did I regret what I did? Strangely, no. I had always despised cheaters. I had seen people become unrecognizable when faced with betrayal. The real shock was Kate. I had truly believed she was as loyal to me as I was to her. Our love life had been amazing until recently. Hours of restless thinking brought one clue to mind. 2 months ago, Kate had mentioned retiring to enjoy her last days of freedom. That comment had unsettled me. I had assumed she would work until at least the 7th month of pregnancy. Something about her wanting one last celebration before kids fell off. My personal cell phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. Hardly anyone had this number. The caller ID showed Kate's parents. They lived 3 hours away. I answered the call. I had always gotten along with Kate's parents. Her mother skipped the pleasantries and got straight to the point. Do you know why journalists are swarming our house? They said we'd find out eventually. She hesitated, struggling with her words. Did you watch the news? They're talking about a cheater who bit off her lover's dignity. I sighed. Yes, Mom. Look, there's no easy way to say this, so I'll just say it straight. The woman is Kate. A scream burst to the phone, followed by a beep. The call had ended. I stared at the screen, realizing something important. Earlier that morning, I had left my phone recording outside the bedroom door. The pain was still raw, but I knew if I didn't try to understand Kate's reasons, I'd never be able to trust another woman again. There was a real chance I could end up a bitter, lonely man, a misogynist doomed to a life of distrust. Desperate for clarity, I played the recording. I already knew what it would show. The pain of that moment was too vivid to forget. I closed my eyes and just listened, letting the voices reach me. The camera, left on the floor, had only captured the ceiling. Kate's lover. This past week has been amazing. Does it really have to end today? My offer still stands. Just say the word, and I'll divorce Sarah and marry you. There was a pause, then Kate's voice. Kate, no, it wouldn't work. What kind of start is that? A marriage with a guy who left his wife and kids. I love Dave too much to hurt him like that. Lover. Really? You love him that much? Because he's not the one lying next to you right now. Another silence. Then Kate finally answered. Kate, you're wrong. I love him completely. The moment I met him, I knew he was my soulmate. I want nothing more than to die in his arms, surrounded by our grandchildren. A scoff. Lover. Then why are you here with me? More silence. Kate, I just miss the past. I was a wild girl before I met Dave. I miss walking into a bar, feeling wanted, the thrill of leading a guy on, deciding if he gets what he wants or not. Lately, Dave's been deer hunting every other weekend. 3 weekends ago, I decided to check out a bar, just for old time's sake. One night turned into 2. Then, last Saturday, I ran into you, and here we are. I turned off the recording. The problem wasn't me. I had been a good husband, a good lover. She was just cold. The next few days passed in a blur of disappointment. 2 days later, the reporters finally left my quiet street. The hospital administrator called, saying Kate needed pajamas. I ignored the request. She could deal with the humiliation of hospital gowns. 2 more days later, her father called. He apologized for Kate's behavior and asked if I'd still keep in touch with the family. Then, trying to sweeten the deal, he reminded me he had another daughter, recently divorced. Sorry, Dad. Meanwhile, the media had moved on to the next scandal. Mr. Not-So-Big-Deal had been released from the hospital, but that wasn't the real headline. The journalists had dug up enough dirt to expose him as a serial cheater. Poetic justice. Oh! And while the surgeons had successfully sewn his manhood back together, the consensus was clear. It was unlikely to ever work properly again. By the end of the week, I had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Barton, or Sarah, as she insisted I call her, showed up. She was a pretty woman with sad eyes. She told me she had heard rumors that I might have evidence that could help in her divorce case. I neither confirmed nor denied anything, only explaining that revealing it would also expose myself. She understood, apologizing for even asking. I reassured her there was already enough circumstantial evidence for her to win, but if things got tricky, she was welcome to come back. Maybe then I'd reconsider. Something about her sadness struck a chord in me. I felt sorry for her. So I pulled up a video file and played only the aftermath. The moment her husband's agonized screams filled the air. Sarah flinched, but she quickly composed herself. Let's just say, by the time she left, sadness was no longer predominant emotion on her face. As he turned to leave, he hesitated, then glanced back at me. Detective, listen, I'm retiring at the end of the year. If I come back after that, will you tell me how you did it? I just smiled and wished him a good day. Then came Kate's letter. It arrived the following Tuesday. My dear Dave, I can't express how ashamed and sorry I am for what I did to you. I understand perfectly why you haven't visited me, and I forgive you unconditionally. I never truly considered the full consequences of my actions. I certainly never imagined that my parents would actually disown me. I know I've lost your love, your trust, and your respect. Forever. That truth hurts more than I can describe. I will understand if you never want to speak to me again. But if it helps your healing, I would like to explain why I did what I did. Just know it was all my fault. The doctors say I won't be able to speak normally for a long time. Maybe ever. Apparently, when I bit down, I swallowed part of my tongue. They're considering some experimental stretching technique to restore function. I hope it works. At the very least, I need something, anything, to distract me from the dull, loveless, childless future I now face. Take whatever you want in the divorce. I'll sign anything. Just, if you could keep me on your health insurance a little while longer, I would be forever grateful. Farewell, my love. I wish you nothing but happiness. I hope I haven't completely ruined your life. Your Kate, a.k.a. your cheating wife. The letter was so touching that I immediately reversed my previous decision. I sent her pajamas to the hospital. Now, where the hell are Mick and Pete's numbers? I owed them a beer, or maybe a whole damn keg.